Let's talk a little bit about Gen Z, more specifically the outreach or lack thereof from the Republican Party, hilariously so to Gen Z. And it's interesting, I'm going to show you Kayleigh McEnany during a recent segment on Fox News tonight, kind of dealing with this information. I've done segments in the past about this very subject where a lot of right-wing figures right now are finally aware of the fact or willing to accept that they're just being thoroughly statistically rejected by Gen Z, by younger voters. And so if they want to have any hope in future elections as the younger generations get more active and become one of the more prominent voting blocs, they're going to have to change the reality. And I'm hoping they won't be able to, that they are being rejected by Gen Z and just generally kind of younger voters. And so some still do the weird, no, actually, I think we're doing fine with Gen Z voters, and plenty just constantly talk down to and about young voters. And so clearly they have no ambition to make a change. Many, as we'll get to after watching this segment of Kayleigh McEnany, just have the approach of let's try to suppress the vote of young voters, which is often a GOP strategy for groups of individuals or populations of voters that don't vote for the Republican Party in high numbers. But some are saying we should reach out. So here's Kayleigh McEnany. I'm going to show you her playing a clip of these TikTok, I think it is, influencers who are political, and then her responding to that and calling to action the GOP on this subject, and lots to discuss on this. Take a look.
Gen Z voters by reaching out to them on platforms such as TikTok and Instagram.
What the Republican Party doesn't understand about Gen Z is we don't like you. You claim you want to appeal to Gen Z, but you call us stupid, you say we're dumb, you say we're indoctrinated. I promise it's a losing strategy. And Gen Z is watching the Republican Party extremely closely as they destroy our environment, take rights away from women, do nothing about kids being shot in schools, and if they think they can give the middle finger to our generation and get away with it, they're sorely mistaken.
It's so false. I'm a Republican, and I think Gen Z is smart, they're intelligent, they're creative. But Republicans, my party, we need to fight for the next generation. We need to spread the conservative messages in places that they'll hear them.
Call me crazy, but it seems like this is the workforce you'd expect after years of liberal.
Sorry about that. Then this compilation moves on to give examples of Fox News talking down to Gen Z voters. Indeed. So Kayleigh McEnany there is saying, no, that's such a wrong, incorrect message from those influencers that Republicans don't really care about reaching out to younger voters. And like I've said, look down a lot on Gen Z voters. How often do we hear, and that's what further examples were going to be shown there in that video that was put together. How often have we heard, oh, these millennials talking about, a little bit of an older generation compared to Gen Z, but still kind of consider younger generations, and Gen Z voters, they're all lazy these days and softies, and they're indoctrinated, as those guys were saying. And that's not a message that anyone's going to resonate with, especially when actually it's pretty incredible how aware and intelligent the younger generations are about political subjects. And that's why one of the things that gives me a whole lot of hope going into the next couple decades of politics is not that this is a given, but the political expectation that we are going to see a shift in the progressive direction because of the current numbers we're seeing coming out of younger generations when they do get active. And if that translates later on to when the larger swath of kind of my generation gets active into politics, then that's a really hopeful thing for the state of which politicians will have in power. Now, Kayleigh McEnany touches on one of the things that I think the GOP is missing. Not that I really want to give them a bunch of strategy, but in analyzing this about what it means to quote unquote reach out to Gen Z, because that is going to be a conversation similar to reaching out to other populations of people in ways unique to the experiences and issues facing those populations. Gen Z is one of those groups that maybe isn't discussed as much, but increasingly there's an awareness that an impact can be made there. And she's thinking we need to reach out. It's just about messaging. We just need to get to them. We're not talking to them. We're not sending our message their way enough. I don't think that's it, Kayleigh McEnany. I think it's that your message no matter how you package it, comes from a set of policy positions or lack thereof that doesn't resonate with people who have a worldview based in a progressive ideology, which is a lot of people within Gen Z. And once you kind of have that paradigm about the world, that lens in which to view the world, it's really hard to then look at Republican policies and think they make any sense whatsoever. As the guys were listing off in that video, there are so many subjects where there's just a rejection from the GOP of meaningful policy positions. One of them being their policies on, or prevention of policies from getting through on gun control. And so until they, even if it's just for the purpose of trying to get elected, become more reasonable on policy and more reasonable on what their actual foundation is of what they're running on, then you can reach out all you want, but I don't think it's going to make a huge difference. And that's why we've seen with organizations like Turning Point USA, they get a whole lot of attention, a whole lot of funding goes in their direction. If you're not familiar, Charlie Kirk is the leader of this organization called Turning Point USA, and it's supposed to be targeting young voters. But then you see areas where they're supposed to be mobilizing young voters, and there's not really an impact that's notable there. And I think it's because you can have all the events you want, all the messages that you want, all the branding you want, but at some point when your message is based on and has to be a set of policy positions that is being so fundamentally rejected by this population of people, then you're not going to make any headway. And that's why some people, like Kayleigh Mitchell, is just openly, or I guess this was in a private meeting that got recorded that we've covered in the past, talking about, we just need to do something about these polling places so close to college campuses.
We need to be looking at what are these college campus locations in polling. What is this young people effort that they do? They basically put the polling place next to the student dorm, so they just have to roll out of bed and go back to bed. And we need to build strong election integrity task forces in those counties. Wisconsin.
And we've looked at the full clip in the past, but election integrity task force around those college campuses. God forbid it's convenient to vote for all people, I wish, but there she's referring to young people. So we'll see how the GOP manages the subject, but they can keep trying to gerrymander to avoid this reality. They can keep trying to, and they will keep trying to message their way and brand their way out of actually changing their policy positions to something more impactful, meaningful, and reasonable. But eventually, if I have anything to say about it, we are going to get active, and Kayleigh McEnany is going to watch as the GOP loses over and over again.